Memphis. I
Thank you. I will. I
We will
love,
be
love,
here.
love Memphis.
It's a great city, great
I
music,
go back
culture.
for weddings. I've gone back a few times.
Amazing. Oh, I think we got the cue from Deanna. Hi everyone, I'm Shauna Medell, Storyraise's VP of Creative Studio, and I want to welcome you to this session of Storyraise Boost, a fast-track virtual learning series that'll go through the end of the year. For those who don't know, Storyraise is a solution for organizations to create personalized digital reports and videos. With the digital report, you can increase engagement with your donors and ultimately raise more funds. If you want to see a sample report, you can click the link in the chat to automatically make one. Now, today we'll be chatting about the importance of storytelling and donor communications at Jewish institutions. These days, it's even more important to ensure that every donor receives a story that feels personal and meaningful. Donors are looking for their place within your mission. They want to see the impact they're having on the people and communities you serve. But identifying the right stories, collecting them, and delivering them in a personalized way can be really challenging. So, how do you consistently surface stories of impact that resonate? And how to use technology to segment and share those stories so each donor receives something that speaks directly to them. For those of you joining us today, many of whom work in donor engagement, stewardship, and communications, you each play a critical role in shaping that donor experience. That's why we're here with two professionals in the Jewish nonprofit space who are engaging in this work every single day. We have Barb Gelb from Prizmah and Samantha Eisenberg from JQ International. They're ready to share their insights and advice to help you use storytelling to stay better connected to your donors. So, Barb, Sam, ready to begin? All right. Well, let's start off, and either of you could go first, but telling us a little bit about how can Jewish organizations tell stories that highlight their personal impact and also connect their donors to Jewish values and identity and tradition, the things that are kind of binding us all together.
I can jump in. So I'm Samantha Eisenberg. Like Shauna said, I go by she, her, and hers. I'm with JQ International based in Los Angeles. I've been a development professional for about 10 years now in the greater Los Angeles area. And when I was looking at your questions, there's a couple themes that really came to mind that I'll probably bring up multiple times in my answers. But my kind of gut instinct here is to look at the broader tapestry of the work that your nonprofit does and evaluate all the different touch points that people might have because I think donors and constituents, they want to see their personal story and experience reflected in what they're receiving and reading. But just as much, I take it one step further and think about all of the people connected to that person receiving services and how their lives are impacted. You kind of can just take the degrees of separation there. And once you start to see, the mom, how the mom's impacted and grandma and cousins, you get these different angles and points of entry, and you can start to build a robust story about the work your nonprofit does and how it weaves into all of those different people's experiences so that your organization is really the main character of that story, weaving all of those unique experiences together.
Beautiful. Thank you. Barb?
Well, Sam, you said that perfectly. Actually, and I was thinking about as you spoke about how it weaves all together and highlights your organization. So I would just say, like, for example, at Prizmah, we strengthen Jewish day schools. And so the idea is that every child gets an excellent Jewish education and that hopefully everybody who wants access to a Jewish day school can have that, and et cetera, et cetera. But so you might say, okay, you tell a story of a child that learns all the rules of Passover and everything in the Haggadah, right? And it's like so great, the impact, these kids, this many kids got this Jewish education, but then you take it to a more personal. And at their Seder this year, Samantha was able to ask the four questions and explain the things on the Seder plate. And her grandfather was beaming, and her mother was crying, and you like have like, you can picture all that at a personal level so it's taking like it's an excellent Jewish education and we have to support Jewish education and the Jewish community to like then the personal. But I like how you said like it weaves it back in because it's like that personal story then contributes to the next generation, which is like the Jewish value of Lador Vador and Vishinantam Levanecha, teaching your children. So all of that ties it back in together. So I think our answers are the same.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. We've all worked or have been or are in the Jewish nonprofit field. I used to work at Hillel International, so I remember all of the storytelling initiatives and trying to connect everything back to really bringing people in into this space and making sure that they feel engaged and a part of the mission. And like you both said, a lot of that has to do with those personal touches and storytelling, and that makes it even more complicated, right? Because as we know, there are stories all around us, but there are so many barriers to actually collecting them and telling them, which leads us into our next question. How do you suggest, from your own personal experience, how can some of these communications and donor relations and all these different teams that are trying to tell these stories, how can they overcome some of the challenges to actually giving them to people and delivering them in a way that is meaningful? And I know you work on different teams and in different spaces. So some of you have smaller teams than others. I know Sam is really a tiny team of one over here. So I think we should start off with you because you wear multiple hats and making sure that all of these stories can be delivered and comes to life.
Yeah, thank you, Shauna. I would say you talk about the barriers to getting to these stories and also sharing them out. When I was reflecting on this, I brought it back to relationships. Of course, it's always about relationships and development, and a few key groups that can sometimes get overlooked. I would say are your program officers and your program personnel, and then storytellers in your community. So I would almost treat, 2 to 3 program professionals in your organization as top priority individuals in your portfolio. You really want to develop a close relationship with them because they're going to have their ear to the grounds. They're going to know what's going on. They're going to really understand how the work impacts people's lives and just treat them as an informant and get little tidbits from them all the time about what's happening because it will spark all kinds of stuff for you. And then the second group that I would try to build some kind of relationship with and really lean on are storytellers. You might find this, a program officer might be a really good storyteller and be able to work with you on that, but it might be a constituent in your organization receiving services who's, comfortable with stepping into a volunteer role in some way and just has that kind of, they perform well on camera or they're a great writer and their experience resonates with some facet of the work that your organization does and how it touches lives. So lean on that person to really craft content and stories and get to the heart of the matter. And I will say, I'm not afraid. I hired a script writer one time just to make it, really tie it all together. And that person had a great story, but they couldn't quite connect the dots. And the program officer knew all of the behind the scenes, but um, bringing it back to relationships. It's all about relationships, but think about beyond just your portfolio, beyond your donor base. Who are your allies and teammates to help you tell those stories?
Great, very important. Thank you.
I 100% agree, of course. But I was going to, about the program people, that is something that it's a great resource and it sometimes is a barrier, but you have to like turn it into the resource. So for our programs, a lot of times there are like surveys about how the program is, right? So like they'll do, let's say, a head of school retreat and the testimonials and things that they receive are like, this was fantastic, the program was great, all these things, right? But those things, which are very important to getting funding, of course, they're not emotional and they're not inspirational in terms of impact. So like what I've worked really hard with my program people are is like, okay, but can you give me an impact story? Like because you went to the head of school retreat, what's something that happened at your school? Like, what did you implement and where else in the chain did that go? And the further down the chain, like, because of that, I changed, the recess structure at my school, and that enabled kids to have more friend groups and like whatever it is, but so how, and I just made that one up, by the way, but it sounds like a good idea. But, like what people need to hear is it's great if your programs are great and we need that information. That's good data, obviously, and that gives us credibility and that helps us raise funds. But it doesn't really like push that like emotion the way like an impact story does, right? So that's where I work with the program people to say, okay, thanks for this great testimonial. Now, do you think you can call them and find out like what they implemented or what it meant, or can I talk to them? And so that's really helpful. And I think did you say oh, you have, so you can also like, if there are really good speakers like heads of school or teachers that have a good way with the camera, videotape them and provide links, because you could send that to a donor and say, I just want you to hear what this person said about the program you funded and the impact it had. So.
Thank you both. All great answers. It's a labor of love to get stories and to make sure that you have all of the pieces, right? The names, the photos, the videos. It can be challenging, but the end product is really worthwhile and something hopefully that a lot of people are repurposing over the next few months and the next few years, because you can always repurpose the content that you gather and that you have on hand. Knowing all of the difficulties around storytelling and getting that type of communication out to donors, how have you all seen or used technology to help segment and deliver those stories to donors who really care to see them, right? Maybe there's a certain aspect of your mission that's really important. I can, imagine, Barb, there's a lot of segmentation going on for different donors who care about different aspects of Jewish day schools. Same thing with JQ, Sam. I'm sure different people are invested in different programs or just different efforts that JQ is going about and pushing ahead. Barb, why don't we go ahead and have you kick it off?
Well, I mean, I know we're going to talk about our impact report at some point that we did with you. And one of the great things that technology was able to do for us there was to segment our population, our lists. I don't even know how to say this right. See, I told you
Yeah.
this is not my area. I'm the people person. But we were able to, but this is what I wanted to do. They did it. And our amazing people at Prizmah who are able to put the list together for us. But like if we wanted to target certain communities with certain schools, we wanted to highlight certain pieces of our impact report for them. So we were able to segment their report. So in one fell swoop, the email would go to all these people, but different pieces would go in different ways to different people. I hope that's explaining it well enough.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And I would just add another, just of course, AI is really an important function now. Like, so if I have a request that I'm writing for donors or a report I'm giving, I might have all the information and then I can put it into AI and say, I would like to stress this more in here. Can you make it sound more like this for me? Can you help me? Can you help me fashion this so it appeals to this person more? And I'll work back and forth with AI so I can just not have to write all these different reports, but like fashion it to meet a certain donor's like personality or something.
hmm hmm And Sam, have you been using technology or others at JQ using technology to help you get those stories out?
Yeah, I'll say on technology, segmenting is so helpful and it gives you those audiences that come to your organization in different ways and have different touch points. Something that I think is really important and sometimes underappreciated is getting feedback on those. So I would really advise really spending some time drilling down into the reporting and the data, who's clicking, who's opening, who's viewing. And Barb, that's awesome that you were able to do all of that segmenting work. It's a huge lift. I struggle all the time trying to manage these lists and one person is like a parent, but also on a board or a committee, and how do you group that? But and that'll depend on where you are. But I would say really look at the reporting and see which segments are responding to what kinds of things and get that real-time feedback and adjust course based on what's performing better with different audiences or maybe on a different platform, or this story that you have a write-up about and a video about, is the video or the write-up doing better with this group or that group? Really just like get that feedback, build reports, set yourself up so you're looking at like a weekly report, a monthly report. I know it's a lot to build all of that, but it'll be so worth it.
Fantastic. And I think you both touched on very important points, right? This is what it means to be data driven. If you're segmenting in such a way, you actually have to follow up and see what the numbers are telling you. You know, are they proving your hypothesis, or do you need to go back to the drawing board? That's the most critical step, and it can arguably be the hardest step, right? Someone has to be the owner and keeper of that data, and we're already so short on time. It's hard to make sure that you're actually building in the process to analyze and then to pivot if you need to. And Barb, I know you mentioned technology, and I think that ties in beautifully with this next part of our conversation is because this work is so demanding, what pieces of it can be automated? Have you found that you're just like, whew, I don't have to comb through this. Like I can just rely on technology to take care of this. But in addition to that, you know, that doesn't mean that the human touch isn't essential, right? Like the humanity is just out the window. There still needs to be a person behind that communication and facilitating those relationships. So, if I'm boiling down this very long-winded question of mine, what parts of your process are automated and using technology, and what parts still require the human element? And Sam, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Sure, I'll just build on my last answer. I think there's a lot of moments and opportunities where you can have a more personal touch, and Barb will have her own answer, of course. But just to build on what I said, um, looking at those reports that you get about who's clicking and who's viewing and stuff, let that data guide your decisions. And you can actually drill down on a lot of these platforms and see specific users and follow their user journey. So um, go and look and see who's your like top 10% engaged audience on this or that platform, and maybe get that list, boil it down to something manageable, 100 names. Sit down with your CEO and look and see if you recognize anybody. And that might be a clue for who to add to your portfolio, who to spend a little bit more time with. You don't have to be so creepy in your communication, but we live in AI world and people know, hey, like I saw you opened this email recently. What did you think of that story? Would love to kind of, you can tone down just how much data you have and still say, I noticed you engaged with our work. That's awesome. What resonated about that story with you? I'd love to hear more.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's another really great answer. I think Prisma is a little bit different because we only work with very high capacity um, donors in the sense that our day schools have donors in their communities, so we don't, poach donors from them. So we're very careful of where our goal is. However, we have lots of communications that go out, and when we have a very, very robust mailing list. So it's an interesting thing. So you definitely have to keep looking at your data. What I do though, is when we do like massive mailings, let's say, I will then like a few days after it, I might send it out again just from me, like forward it and say, I wanted to make sure you saw this one, like to my own donors that I know very well. And they're not my donors, but Prizmah's donors. But the ones that I'm connected to, and also my colleagues will do the same because there's so much information coming at everyone all the time. So like it's great. Like we want to make sure people remember Prizmah and think of it in their mind. So we want them to get that information, but we already know that their mailboxes are over full as well. So they're going to miss things. So I try to send some like forward them personally. So that's where I mix the personal touch and the automation.
Great. Thank you both. Very thorough and important answers. Um, Barb, I'd love us to pull up this Prizmah report that you mentioned earlier and just have us walk through some of the sections, maybe not even all of them, but some of the
Okay.
highlights and tell us a little bit more about your kind of segmenting journey with this and
Yeah.
getting the right donors to see the right pages.
Yeah, I mean, impact reports are like so painful because you have so much you want to say, but you really don't want to overwhelm them.
Of course.
I really love this, the look of the Storyraise platform. If I mean, if you can see it from here, everyone can see it. What I wanted to a couple things. Can you go to the section side to show them how that works? So like it's very easy for people once they know how to use the table of contents on the side. And so if you just want to show somebody something, you can tell them, hey, click on the impact of through the virtuous cycle. So let's look at the virtuous cycle for a second. Um, this was really exciting for me because one thing I love about Prizmah is our virtuous cycle graphic. If you scroll down a little, I think we're going to see it. Sorry. Oh, you can keep going. This is all great if anyone wants to see it. So this is a really important piece of information for everything we do. These are the levers that we pull on that push each other. So if we try to improve any of these, if we work to drive any of these levers, then they will push the rest of the levers to and increase excellence in that school and increase the experience of the students. So like if we invest in, let's say, talent at the leadership end of the school, that's going to drive excellence of the school, which is going to drive enrollment, which is going to drive affordability. So I was really excited when we were able to create this graphic. And then if you scroll further, you'll see how then we are able to, you can just keep going. So there's the talent one. Yeah. And then we were able to highlight what Prizmah did in each area. And I thought this was a beautiful layout. Um, of a concept that's like really simple that people love, but also like is has a lot in it. If you want to just go down further, we can just show like each like so how we highlight what we do in each area. And I thought that was kind of cool. Um, what else would you like me to share about it, Shauna?
No, that's I think you did it justice. We can also
Okay.
drop the link in the chat if anyone is looking to see an example of what a Storyraise report looks like. I think Prisma did a great job of making this report thorough, but also dynamic. And you saw, there was a number counter feature, and not everything was just so text heavy like a traditional report, but there's a lot of good imagery. And something I really love about Prisma is that you all have done a great job in getting photos of students in real time in the moment, like actually experiencing Jewish education, not these kind of grip and grin photos that we see with no context,
Mhm.
but actually showing what people do. And JQ also has done a fabulous job with that of making sure there's a photographer at different events, or that, someone is at least behind the camera on their phone who knows what a good photo looks like. Because it's not enough to tell, right? Storytelling also involves visuals. And then I have one more question for you, Sam, now that we've put Barb on the spot with her
Thank you.
report. I know that you all at JQ just hosted a very successful JQ Impact Awards, which is an annual event for those who don't know. It's been going on for 20 something years, hosted in LA every year. I've got to follow along over the years and see it grow, and also see some incredible celebrity faces make an appearance there. I think the perk of being in LA, right? But I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about the event, just give us a little bit more context and how you leaned on storytelling to engage with donors, and also maybe some new faces who popped up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shauna. Barb, just wanted to say what a beautiful report. Loved the website. Congratulations to you both. Yeah, our Impact Awards is a fundraising gala we do every year for JQ. And in the past, it's been a lot of biographic videos and monologues, speeches from our awards recipients, very jovial, joyful experience, really important to our community. Um, and last year we made some big changes around the structure and purpose and intention of the event. We took away the longer speeches and the biographic videos and switched it to a live streamed panel discussion around LGBTQ plus mental health topics, which is the core of JQ's work. And we had our honorees as well as a celebrity moderator and our CEO speak up there about the work. And for me, in terms of storytelling, the value of that is first, we treat our awards as mission fulfillment opportunities. So we have a lot of complimentary tickets. We invite stakeholders and constituents into the room so that they can mingle with our donors and share organically about their experiences. And the same is reflected on the stage. And to me, it just goes back to that, weaving the tapestry, connecting the dots, and allowing a little bit of messiness in the story and letting people cross talk about their experiences. And that really produced a lot of beautiful, insightful, meaningful things that I could never come up with by myself, even with a script writer just sitting alone, letting people really talk about their stories and find the common ground in what might feel like really disparate experiences produces just, deeper, richer, more connective stories for people. So you can all go watch it on our YouTube channel. We live streamed it if you're interested in those conversations, JQ International on YouTube.
Great, thank you. And again, we can drop all these links in the chat. I am pretty sure Deanna is on that, my colleague from Storyraise. So if for some reason you don't grab one of these links, just let us know and we'll get you what you need. Thank you again, Barb and Sam. This was a great conversation. And again, I know we're all very invested in Jewish nonprofit work and the time and the effort that it takes to bring that mission to fruition is incredible. And again, it's really a labor of love. So thank you both for all that you do for Prizmah and for JQ, both incredible Jewish organizations. And thank you all for joining us as part of this next edition of Boost. If you want to see a sample report like we talked about earlier, a Storyraise report, you can click the link in the chat to automatically make one. And if you have any questions about Storyraise or anything we discussed during our webinar today, you can always reach out to me at shauna@storyraise.com. We're very glad you all could join us for this installment of Boost. Stay tuned for our next session. This is going to be in July. It's on July 1st. We'll have experts from Elevate Marketing Strategy to talk about thank you techniques that drive donor retention for K through 12 schools. And I will see you all next time. Thanks again, Barb and Sam. Good to see you.